Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Does your warehouse waste time and money managing forklift batteries? EnerSys can energize your operations with a customized solution, delivering the power you need while minimizing ownership costs. EnerSys starts by analyzing your operations and then selecting from their comprehensive range of battery and charger technologies, develops a truly optimized system tailored to your needs. EnerSys gives you the power to increase productivity and profitability. See how EnerSys puts power in motion for you at enersys.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I will be joined by Scott Walker, who is the VP of Supply Chain Product Management at Powerfleet. And Powerfleet is providing IoT solutions for multiple industries, but also the logistics and material handling industry, which obviously we're going to focus in on today. But they are focused on people-powered IoT, and we're going to find out what that means exactly, and we're going to talk a little bit about how IoT is important and impactful for the material handling industry, and a little bit about their VAI 100, which is helping to increase safety in the warehousing space as well. So, Scott, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
Great. Happy to have you on. Happy to learn more about Powerfleet and IoT in general. So I gave my little description of Powerfleet, but I'm sure you could do much better. So why don't you give us a little brief overview of Powerfleet and what it is you guys do?
Yeah, Powerfleet, it's an ever-evolving institution here that we've built, and I've been with Powerfleet for 16 years or so, and seen a lot of change over time, but we focus on really everything material movement. So that's from the in-warehouse, in-manufacturing plant, material handling to all the transitions between plants and operations. So we do over-the-road, we do rail car, we do all those intermodal opportunities, and then we also have a group focused on Class 1 through 5 vehicles for fleet management in general. So that could be last mile delivery, or it could just be an overall fleet manager.
Okay, great. And definitely touching all the points of movement there, as you said. And as I mentioned in the intro there, I mean, you say on the website, I see pretty prominently that this is people-powered IoT, right? So IoT, obviously, I think, everybody's pretty familiar, Internet of Things, right? But when we talk about people-powered IoT, what exactly does that mean?
Sure. Yeah, and I think the IoT space has grown quite a bit in the last 10 years or so when it started. And, it started out as a vision of just, millions and millions of devices just sending data into the cloud, and something magical was going to happen to it. And,
yeah.
Our focus is taking some of those high value assets and the information coming from our IoT solutions and turning that into actionable opportunities for people to enhance what they're doing. So that could be the people using those assets and making their life easier and making their day safer and making sure they get home safe every day. Or it could be at the more transactional level for operations people to say, all right, let me look at what all these assets and devices and IoT inputs are, and how does it actually help me shape my business in a way that benefits everyone, whether that's sustainability or doing more with less, or just making their team members happier to go to work every day. And with the supply chain disruption and the things that have been going on the last several years, there's been, one of the more tremendous focuses, especially in the material handling industry, is a shrinking team member base. So people are finding it harder to retain employees. They're also finding it harder to find new ones to replace those that either retire or find other opportunities. And, that's what we're focused on, the people around it, because as much as, the world could run on 100% automation, it's really not ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I mean, the people are still very key to making our operations run, even though we've taken a lot of tasks and be able to automate them and bring in robotics. We still need people to do some of those things in between that require a little more people-centric decision-making and actions as well. So in that sense, too, I mean, you talked about the... and certainly I think it's been a discussion point for a year, maybe longer now, about, a shortage in labor out there to be able to bring labor into our space and a lot of different reasons for that. But how is IoT, in a sense, able to help companies tackle that challenge? I mean, how do you see it helping there?
Yeah, and so there's a couple of ways that we do it, right? There's finding ways to be able to do more with less, right? That's one piece of it. But the other piece is really what I just talked about, which is being able to create an environment where people want to work for you and with your teams and creating that retention program. So, in the manufacturing space, as an example, they're expecting that between retirements and just new job growth in manufacturing, they're expecting somewhere around 4 million jobs to be empty over the next 10 years. And with only a backfill of about half of that for people ready to fill those positions. So, businesses that have the need for that growth, but not the opportunity to fill that growth, really need to try to find ways to use that technology to decide, can I alleviate some of the burdens that are, non-value add from these roles and put them in roles that are more value add?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that makes sense too, because I think even part of the reason we see, right, you talk about these non-value added roles, and typically, there are things that, people really don't want to do anyway, right? So it's like, right, if you're able to kind of reduce those, then you can increase the interest, right? Like, I don't think there's anybody out there that wants to come into a warehouse and just like put a label on a box all day long and just do that, right? Exactly. Like, there's no longevity in that. Like, someone's going to come in and do that to, make some money real quick, but then, they're not going to stay and do that for years on end, right? So being able to find ways to tackle those type of tasks and eliminate them from a human perspective is certainly a key thing in being able to provide those jobs that people actually want to do or find interest or engage in some way, right? So it's interesting there. So now on the IoT side, right, we talked about how IoT is these devices that are connected and able to exchange all this data back and forth. But in material handling specifically, how is IoT kind of helping us in the material handling industry? And I guess, why is it important for us to have this connectivity between devices and things within our industry?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So in the industrial environment, it's even a little more in depth than the rest of the type of IoT, right? So in the industrial space, we're actually focused not just on collecting and sending data and using an engine to analyze it and spit out analytics that predict on what you should do next, but we're also integrating an element of control on it, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the main reasons for that is that in the industrial equipment space, it's one of the most dangerous places basically in the country, right? Other than car accidents, there's it's one of the highest causes of injuries and fatalities. So we introduce a little bit of an element of control to try to increase that safety practice. And like I said, with all this movement and the opportunity for new roles for people, they want to work somewhere that's going to make them happy, but also somewhere that keeps them safe. And so when they have more opportunities, they're going to migrate to those places that they go to work. They're doing tasks that give them personal fulfillment, They're doing tasks that make their life easier, not harder, less stress, not more stress, but also places they feel like they're going to show up every day, do their job, and come home safe. And, that's a lot of the space that we're focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing, right? I mean, you want people to come in and be able to, leave the same way they walked in the door, right? You don't want to have to take that work home with you and feel that pain and whatever may have happened of the day. And like you said, less stress, right? Less stress.
Right.
I think it was the quote, less stress, more checks, right? Something like that. But so you want to be able to do these things. And obviously, you guys are harnessing some data from things that are happening, like the forklifts and material handling equipment that's going on within the warehouse. So how is that being delivered? Because you guys provide a telematics solution,
sure.
Right? So how is that being provided, and what does that look like from an operation perspective, and how do we bring that in here, and how do we start to harness this data and make right decisions to increase our safety and awareness?
Sure. Yeah, so in this space in particular, Powerfleet focuses on end-to-end solutions. So we have kind of a two-pronged interface with our customers. One is at that driver experience level. So we have devices that give them immediate feedback that also control the vehicles that they're going to operate in a various number of ways. So there's regulations that say they have to inspect equipment. We give them an interface to quickly answer or provide the inputs of their inspection. Is the vehicle safe to operate or not? Yes or no? What's wrong with it if it's not? And that triggers a whole workflow that automatically notifies maintenance people to come and make sure it's safe. But if the equipment's good to go, they do that very quickly through this interface. It tells them that they're good, and they move on with their day. And at that point, the solution also gives them continuous feedback throughout the day if there's anything that comes up. It could be a diagnostic problem with the equipment. It could be that the way they're operating the equipment is an unsafe manner, and it'll alert them, hey, you're going too fast around this corner, or you've just bumped into something and it seemed like it was a little too rough for what we expect. Those sort of acts or speed. And then one of our latest technologies integrates this pedestrian warning system that actually basically enhances their ability to predict whether or not there's about to be an incident. And in that space, it's really been adopted pretty well, and the drivers really seem to like the feedback because, they're moving through these areas where there's a lot of people. Right? Especially with the supply chain disruption. There's more people in smaller spaces, or we're asking people to move at faster speeds than they normally would have to get things done because of the unpredictability of goods coming in and goods leaving. And to ask the operator to have their head on a swivel and constantly be scanning all areas all the time while operating this, very heavy, dangerous piece of equipment is a little bit unfair. So we've incorporated some technologies that use artificial intelligence via a video panel, and basically it's doing that scanning of all the area in the direction of travel, and it's doing that analysis, 30 to 50 times a second. It doesn't replace the need for the driver to pay attention to what they're doing, but it does pick up things that are very difficult for a person to pick up in their peripherals, right? Or even directly in front of them if they're distracted by some other noise or some other action that makes them turn their head and look in the other direction. And, that gives the driver two pieces of feedback. It gives them, feedback to themselves to let them know, hey, you're approaching a dangerous area. That could be a sound that we generate or a visual indication that there's something coming. But we also have some integrations into the vehicle that allow us to automatically slow the truck down and say, hey, look, you're going 9 miles an hour, and we notice that there's an object that's relevant in your immediate area coming up. Let me slow you down automatically to make sure that, and that's another, it's a more functional feedback to the driver that, hey, something's going on. And so that technology really focuses on avoiding hitting people, avoiding hitting vehicles, things that could be in your way that you're not focused on.
Very interesting. And you said that it's a video interface. So talk to us a little bit about what does that look like, and is it like a video screen, or it's a camera you mean capturing?
So we use cameras. We use forward-facing and rear-facing cameras for most vehicles. Some vehicles only drive in one direction, so then you only need a single-direction camera. But yeah, we use cameras, and we don't present the video. I mean, we can. We have an optional display, but most people prefer not to present the video to the driver because it's more of a distraction than it is an aid.
Right.
But so we use that video, and we capture all the images, and we store them along with the percent of the infractions or whatever and how frequent they are. And we collect all that data remotely so that we can then do analysis. And where that really helps on the back end side of this, along with our other telematics data, is we know who's driving at the time, which vehicle it is, what location of the facility it is. And we could do a lot of predictive analysis on that. Like, is there a particular area of your facility that's more dangerous than others? Because that's where we see all the breaches happening of people in front of a moving object. Or are there specific drivers that need more coaching because they're the ones that seem to have more, a higher frequency of breach areas than anyone else? And that remote collection and analysis is how you take a tactical driver aid, which makes them happy, but then feeds into a safety solution manager who can then look at that data and actually make the overall business happy, knowing that they're making a difference by potentially changing slotting operations or changing routes that people drive to create a safer environment in general.
Very interesting, and it's great to see because I think oftentimes what happens, especially around these safety concerns, is that you don't necessarily get the chance to understand everything that truly happened, in a sense, right? I mean, you look at, the forklift operator would tell you one story, right? And then maybe somebody, a witness close by, will tell you a different story. And you don't necessarily always have, especially when we look at a warehouse fulfillment center and how racking is set up, and you have product blocking areas where a security camera could capture, or maybe the camera skips at that certain moment for whatever reason. That seemed to happen to me a lot in the past, unfortunately. But you look at these things and you don't really necessarily get the chance to fully understand what happened to make a proper corrective action, right? To make sure you take some action to make sure the same thing doesn't happen again. So being able to capture that data and understand kind of truly what happened there, or even just prevent it from happening from the technology itself in the first place, I think is a huge step forward. So talk to us a little bit about maybe some potential examples of companies you work with, or use cases where you've had, maybe they've had issues in the past with safety, and now like Powerfleet has kind of helped them to really advance in that area.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Sure. And just real quick, relying on ceiling-based camera systems, whether they're security or just operational, it becomes a real resource problem, because oftentimes it can take hours to go through that footage to try to find the right time when something may have happened, whereas this is all time-stamped in real time, and you get clips that are specific to the events, which is really, a game changer as far as how much time it takes you to look into these incidents.
Yeah, absolutely. I've certainly lost a lot of time looking in my warehouse management experience. So, yeah, definitely a huge thing. So give us some examples of how Powerfleet has kind of helped some operations to really improve upon their safety initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, we have customers in different industries using this, and there's a couple different ways they do it. Some customers have actually built in, leveraging the data from our system, they've built in compensation packages for their drivers and their workers. and they'll use the data to give them monthly safety scores based on the, comparatively amongst, month to month, but also comparatively amongst their peers. And they're actually, getting compensation or not based on the way that they're leveraging this information. Because especially, the space, so there's a lot of aspects to the safety aspect, right? Mm-hmm. There's like collisions that actually happen, and then there's this pedestrian solution that we just talked about that kind of predicts and avoids collisions. Now, in the previous example of actually incidents, I mean, that technology's been around. We've had different evolutions of it for 20 years, and it's really good at this point, but that's reactive. And people have been using that technology to say, hey, let's do more coaching because we had incidents. But that's not really the best way to approach safety, which is why we started to look into this, camera AI technology. And there, it's very interesting because no one knows how often that there wasn't an incident before you start implementing a technology like this. You only know that you had one. You don't know that you just narrowly missed like 10.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's where we're really helping companies really understand, like, how close are you to that incident that you haven't had that's going to cost you time, workers' compensation, going to cost you, lots of money, going to have equipment downtime that means you can't move as many goods. And that's the space that we've been focused on. And we've had some of our, longtime customers who've been using our telematics solutions to really influence their business for years, really jump in and want to adopt this technology and use it for exactly what I talked about. Like, do we have unsafe areas or do we have drivers? And they are using that to coach people up, and they've seen results in a very positive way. And they've seen some eye-opening data to say, look, we didn't realize how often people are, traveling in a direction where something comes out from an aisle that they weren't expecting, or a pedestrian who's working in a work zone just steps out without looking. It's often not really the driver's fault.
Yeah.
But they're the key person who can avoid a catastrophic incident.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point, because it certainly is, if nobody reports it or speaks up, or it's not witnessed, then you don't always know from like a management perspective that, you're having these near misses, or even actually sometimes collisions as well, like minor collisions, like you're doing like your walk around the building, and just all of a sudden you notice in one of the rackings, like it's dented. And it's like, well, how did that happen? When did it happen? No one said anything, right? So you kind of lack that visibility to that without any type of tech kind of layered in there. And I think it's great that you guys are addressing that and able to create that additional visibility, especially as you mentioned, as things are getting a little crazier, right, in the supply chain, and bringing in people maybe sooner, and some companies, regretfully might be having to fast track people on training just to be able to keep up and fulfill those operations. At least this gives you now an additional basis to understand where people need to get a little more coaching, a little more help on safety and navigating with the equipment, or pedestrians as well. As you mentioned, I think it's a good point, is that it's not necessarily always the forklift operator's fault, right? Sometimes pedestrians are not walking where they should be, or maybe they're on their phone or not paying attention, or they're not typically in a warehouse environment. Maybe it's somebody from different department or something coming out of the office into the warehouse, and not necessarily used to the traffic flow of things. So it's great that it's impactful on both ends. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that the growth of the technology is really the enabler here, and I'm excited that it's going to continue. But the concept of using sort of a location-based or a regional pedestrian warning solution has been around for a long time. It's just been extremely unreliable, because using a proximity sensor doesn't know the difference between a person and a pallet, or a UWB system that's relying on somebody wearing a tag and then a vehicle having a reader. The range, if some, can change just based on the environment around them. It could go from 20 feet to 10 feet, and you just don't know, right, why it's reliable or not reliable. And just edge-based artificial intelligence has really change that whole dynamic to make it an effective means to doing this reliably, so that your driver could be confident, and the data, you could be confident that the data, you're getting it all, as opposed to, some system relies on a tag and someone's not wearing a tag, and, you missed half the events that you should have been capturing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great. Absolutely. And so now, I guess if somebody wants to get this, right, and is it something that you can put on any forklift, any equipment, or is it for specific equipment? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is made Powerfleet successful over time is the ability to create scalable solutions across, all equipment. So this is something that we focused on. It's something we're going to continue to focus on as we approach, Rev 2 of this solution for us. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've installed these on every kind of make model. It gets a little challenging when you're on like a small tugger or something to get like camera solutions in a way that someone's not going to knock them and change their directions. But that's where we evolve. But yeah, right now it's totally agnostic of OEM. We put it on all different kinds. We have mounting solutions that fit different types of vehicles. And that's been a strong suit of Powerfleets for a long time, is being able to take a single solution and apply it to all different vehicle types, makes, models, years, without having to custom engineer each one for each solution. So.
All right, very interesting, and I think that's great to have that flexibility as well, so you can use it on whatever you may have in your fleet, because some people may have mixed fleets in different manufacturers, and depending on how they've evolved as a business as well. So really great and useful information here from you, Scott, on Powerfleet, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the material handling industry, especially from a safety aspect. I think that's a huge thing in giving that extra layer of visibility and being able to continuously evolve that and giving some reliability to that technology as well, and really empowering people to make better decisions and do things that are more enjoyable and more valuable, as we talked about there. So if people are interested in learning more about Powerfleet, how can they do that?
Yeah, I would encourage you to, it's very easy to contact us, but our website, powerfleet.com, has a wealth of information on it, as well as all the contact details you need to get in touch with the right person to talk through whichever solution you're interested in.
All right, great. And we'll put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well. So, Scott, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.